Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. Some people read emotions. Sigma empaths decode souls without asking permission. Now pause. Think about that. How do you explain someone who can sense your lies before you speak, feel your pain before you cry, and detach from you without even flinching, even though they loved you deeper than anyone ever did? You don't explain them. You experience them, and then spend years trying to understand what the hell just happened. Sigma empaths aren't your soft-spoken saints walking around hugging trees and crying during sunset. No, they're emotionally lethal, spiritually tuned, and disturbingly accurate. These are the people who can walk into a room and immediately feel who's fake, who's dangerous, and who's drowning in denial. And they'll do it all without saying a single word. And here's a fun fact to mess with your brain. According to recent neuroscience research, some highly empathic individuals exhibit neurological patterns identical to trained interrogators. Except they're not trained. They're just built that way. That's right. Sigma empaths are nature's untrained truth extractors. They don't need FBI clearance. They already know your emotional fingerprints. So if you've ever met someone who made you feel exposed, safe, judged, and loved all at once, congrats. You just met a Sigma empath. And no, they're not too sensitive. They just have 19 extraordinary abilities that most people can't even comprehend, let alone handle. Let's dive into the secrets most people don't want to admit. Because once you see what a Sigma empath can do, you'll never unsee it. Number 1, they sense the emotional ghosts people carry: grief, shame, guilt. Sigma empaths don't just feel what's happening in the moment. They sense what's haunting you. You could be smiling across the room, dressed like confidence itself, talking like nothing's wrong, and still they feel it. That heaviness behind your charm, that silence behind your laughter, that subtle ache in your presence that most people overlook. It's not just vibes they're reading, it's emotional residue, the kind of lingering energy that sticks to a person long after the event has passed. They pick up on the grief you've shoved into the background, the shame you learned to hide behind ambition, the guilt you numbed with busyness. You never said a word about it, but they know. It's in your pauses, in the way your energy flinches when certain names come up, in the way you avoid stillness like silence might say too much. Sigma empaths don't need to ask. They already feel who you lost, what broke you, and what you've buried to keep functioning. And what's wild is, they carry that weight with you, without ever making it about themselves. Sometimes they'll mourn for the version of you that had to die to survive. They'll feel the pain you refuse to touch, not to invade your space, but because their emotional frequency doesn't filter out the ghosts. You can pretend all you want, but your energy still tells the truth, and they don't ignore it. But they won't force you to talk. They won't drag your pain into the light. They just stay with it, silently acknowledging what no one else has the depth to feel. And that's what makes people feel so disarmed around them, because they're being emotionally seen, even when they thought they were hiding it perfectly. This is why being around a Sigma empath often feels intense. Not because they're dramatic, but because their presence makes it impossible to keep pretending. They don't just notice the ghosts. They hold space for them, quietly, respectfully, and in a world that's constantly rushing past people's wounds, that kind of presence feels almost supernatural. Number 2, they know when to emotionally starve you to force your own growth. Sigma empaths have a rare emotional intelligence that's not just about feeling, it's about knowing exactly when to stop giving. They don't pull away from people because they're cold-hearted. They pull away when they realize that their constant emotional support is no longer helping you grow. It's holding you back. They see it like this: if you're leaning on them too much, you're not building your own legs. And they won't watch you turn their empathy into your emotional crutch. So one day, without drama or warning, they start pulling back. No big fight, no announcement, just silence. They stop asking if you're okay every 5 minutes. They stop validating every meltdown. They stop offering that warm, safe space you got too comfortable in. And suddenly, you feel it, that shift, the absence of emotional comfort that used to be your hiding place. But they didn't abandon you. They just took their empathy out of the equation to force you to face yourself. You might think they're being harsh, even heartless. But in their mind, it's an act of love with steel in it. Because the truth is, some people only grow when their favorite shoulder to cry on disappears. Sigma empaths know this. They know when someone is stuck in a pattern of emotional dependence, using pain as identity, and milking sympathy to avoid responsibility. And they refuse to feed that cycle. They don't ghost you out of spite. They leave you alone with yourself because that's where real growth begins. The silence they give isn't punishment, it's a mirror. And if you can sit in that silence long enough, you'll hear the voice inside you that you've been drowning out with distractions, drama, and validation seeking. That's what makes them so different from others. They don't just feel deeply. They act strategically. Their empathy is powerful, but it's not bottomless. When it's no longer being used to heal, but to enable, they take it away. Not to hurt you, but to wake you up. Because they know something most people don't. That sometimes withholding empathy is the most powerful form of love there is. Number 3. They feel your future before you even live it. Sigma empaths operate on a level of awareness that most people can't even name. They're not reacting to your words or your mood. They're reading the pattern of your becoming. While others get caught up in who you are in the moment, Sigma empaths quietly observe where you're heading. They notice the tiny shifts in your behavior, the subtle contradictions in your energy, the silent cracks in your confidence. And before you even realize that you're headed toward a personal disaster, they already know. It's not some mystical hunch. It's emotional pattern recognition sharpened by solitude, scars, and brutal honesty. They can sense when you're building a future that your current self won't survive. And when they feel that you're about to spiral, self-sabotage, or morph into someone unrecognizable, they adjust quickly. Sometimes they pull back. Sometimes they go ghost. Not to punish you, but to preserve themselves from the wreckage they know is coming. What makes this even more unsettling is how calmly they do it. They won't beg you to slow down. They won't try to convince you to change. They simply exit before the crash, because they know that trying to stop a person who isn't ready to face themselves is a waste of empathy. And when the breakdown finally happens, you'll look around for the one person who always got you, and they'll be gone. What's eerie is when you finally understand why they left, you'll realize they never left you. They just left the version of you that was about to destroy both of you. It's not cold. It's calculated mercy. Because Sigma empaths aren't just sensitive, they're strategic. They see further than most, feel deeper than they admit, and vanish the moment your future starts becoming dangerous to their peace. And when the dust settles, you'll realize they didn't abandon you at your worst. They just refused to die in the fire you were about to set. Number 4. They can intuitively tell who you are when you're not performing for the world. Sigma empaths don't get distracted by the performance most people put on. You can show up as confident, loud, mysterious, or even overly spiritual. It doesn't matter. They're not watching your smile. They're listening to what your energy isn't saying. The vibe you're trying to sell might fool others, but to them, it's just noise. They bypass your mask like it's transparent and go straight to the raw data, your core. They pay attention to the pauses in your sentences, the tension in your jaw, the way your eyes shift when certain topics come up. They read the discomfort you try to laugh off, the way your body reacts when you're lying to yourself, and the subtle desperation behind your need to appear put together. They don't need to confront you. They don't need proof. They just know. This is why so many people feel unnerved around Sigma empaths without knowing why. Because when you're used to being admired for your image, it's unsettling to meet someone who's not buying it. They don't fall for your branding, your clout, or your carefully rehearsed realness. They see through the filters. They notice how much energy you spend curating yourself. And underneath all that, they find the real you, the one even you avoid sometimes. And what makes it more intense is that they won't always call it out. They'll sit there, fully aware of who you actually are, while you continue performing. Not out of cruelty, but because they've learned something dangerous. Most people only reveal their truth when they think no one's watching. So, Sigma Empaths watch, quietly, deeply, and without giving you a script to follow. By the time others are still trying to figure out your zodiac sign or what trauma you have, Sigma Empaths already know your motivations, your fears, and what you're hiding under that polished exterior. And the moment you slip, the moment your mask wobbles, they don't flinch. Because they were never fooled in the first place. Number 5. They absorb darkness without getting tainted. Sigma Empaths have a strange, almost unsettling ability to sit with emotional darkness without flinching. While most people either internalize other people's pain or run from it, Sigma Empaths let it pass through them. They don't hold on. They don't get infected by the bitterness, jealousy, rage, or sadness people unload onto them. It flows in, gets processed, and flows right back out without leaving a stain. People often dump their emotional baggage onto Sigma Empaths without even realizing they're doing it. It's like their presence invites honesty. Something about them makes people want to open up, even with the ugliest parts of themselves. And when they do, Sigma Empaths don't react the way others do. There's no judgment, no pity, no fake reassurance. They absorb the chaos, translate it into clarity, and hand it back to you in the form of truth. Not soft truth, necessary truth. It's unnerving how calm they remain in the face of emotional mess. They won't cry with you just to be polite. They won't pretend to feel sorry for you if they know you're playing victim. They just see, they analyze, and then they extract the lesson hiding under all the noise. That's their power. They take in emotional poison and somehow convert it into something useful, not just for you, but for themselves. This is why they rarely burn out, despite being deeply empathic. They don't carry what isn't theirs. They don't try to save people who want to stay broken. And they never allow someone else's darkness to define their light. They've mastered the difference between feeling your pain and becoming it. What leaves people in awe is how they can be exposed to emotional toxins day after day and still walk away grounded, clear-headed, and eerily detached. It's not coldness, it's discipline. It's knowing that if they absorbed every wound they witnessed, they'd drown too. Instead, they choose alchemy. You walk away from them lighter, clearer, and strangely seen. They walk away untouched, not because they didn't care, but because they knew exactly when to care without collapsing. Number 6. They know when you're lying to yourself, and they won't rescue you. Sigma Empaths have a rare kind of emotional intelligence that cuts deeper than most people are ready for. They can spot self-deception in real time, the way your voice changes when you're forcing positivity, the way your body tightens when you say you're fine, the way your stories shift to protect your ego instead of exposing your truth. They catch it instantly. But here's what separates them from other empaths. They don't intervene. They won't call you out. They won't gently guide you back to honesty. They won't argue with your illusions. Instead, they go quiet. Not because they didn't notice, but because they did, and they're giving you space to choke on your own script. Their silence becomes a mirror, and eventually that mirror turns into pressure. You feel it, not immediately, but later, when you replay the conversation and realize they didn't believe a word of what you said. This unnerves people. Because most of us are used to getting comforted when we lie to ourselves. We're used to people nodding, validating, or even joining us in the fantasy. But Sigma Empaths don't do that. They don't enable illusions. They sit in stillness while your inner world starts glitching from the weight of unspoken truth. What makes their silence even more brutal is how precise it is. It's not passive, it's surgical. It targets the exact moment when your story stopped aligning with your soul and cuts right there. You'll feel exposed, even if they never said a word. You'll hear the truth echo louder than any confrontation could have delivered. But it's not cruelty. It's discipline. Sigma Empaths know that saving someone from their self-deception only delays the collapse. And they're not here to delay. They're here to observe the exact moment you reach your threshold and finally confront yourself. And when that moment comes, you'll remember their silence. Not as abandonment, but as the one thing honest enough to not buy your performance. Number 7. They mirror you so deeply, you think you've met a soulmate, until they detach. Sigma empaths have a way of making people feel seen in a way they've never experienced before. It's not because they're trying to impress you or play into your insecurities. It's because they naturally mirror back the raw, unfiltered version of who you are, beneath the ego, the armor, and the mask. You talk, they listen. You open up, and they don't flinch. Suddenly, you feel understood, validated, almost spiritually tuned in, like you've known them for lifetimes. That's where the illusion begins. Because they're so good at reflecting your deepest self, most people confuse that reflection for connection. You start to believe you've found your person, a soulmate, twin flame, divine match, whatever label makes it easier to explain the intensity. But in reality, what you're experiencing isn't mutual attachment. It's a one-way exposure to your own soul, reflected through someone who's emotionally intelligent enough to hold it, but detached enough to never need it. And then, without warning, they detach. Not because they're cruel, not because they were playing a role, but because at some point they saw something subtle but telling, a misalignment, a manipulative undertone, a selfish intent wrapped in flattery. Maybe your soul wasn't as safe as your words suggested, and once that realization hits, they don't confront you, they just vanish. Quietly, completely, like they never existed. That's when the spiritual hangover sets in. You feel abandoned but also exposed, because what hurts isn't just their absence, it's the reflection they left you with, the version of yourself you thought they validated. That was you. And now you have to face it without their mirror. You start questioning everything, your intentions, your identity, your emotional depth. Not because they destroyed you, but because they refused to stay in a space that wasn't emotionally clean. That's the paradox of the Sigma empath. They show you a version of love that feels divine, but it's not love based on fantasy. It's rooted in truth. And if your truth can't stand on its own, they'll walk away and let the void do what their words never could. Number 8. They can walk into a room and instantly detect the most dangerous person. Sigma empaths don't rely on rumors, facial expressions, or body language experts to spot danger. Their nervous system is the radar. The moment they enter a room, they don't just observe the people, they feel them. And within seconds, they pick up on energetic imbalances that most people ignore. Not everyone feels the same to them. Some people give off warmth, confusion, or anxiety, but then there's that one person whose energy hits differently. He could be smiling, she could be laughing, but something feels off, tight, heavy, loaded. They sense pressure, like the emotional equivalent of a gas leak. The air gets thick around that person, even if no one else notices, and the Sigma empath doesn't second-guess it. Their body reacts before their brain even forms the words. It's not paranoia, it's instinct. That subtle knot in their stomach, that sudden tension in their jaw, that's their emotional radar going off. And it's usually dead accurate. The dangerous person isn't always loud or aggressive. Sometimes they're the most charming one in the room, the one cracking jokes, the one everyone likes. But Sigma empaths feel what others don't. The hidden resentment, the power games, the repressed rage simmering just under the surface. And when that happens, they shift. They go quiet, pull their energy back, and reposition themselves away from that person, physically, mentally, energetically. Others might think they're overreacting. But weeks later, when that likable person finally snaps or reveals their true nature, everyone's shocked except the Sigma empath. They already knew. They didn't need to hear gossip or wait for proof. Their body clocked the truth on arrival. This ability isn't something they boast about. In fact, most Sigma empaths downplay it because they've been told they're too sensitive or judgmental in the past. But experience taught them not to question it. When the vibe feels dangerous, they listen, because they've seen what happens when people ignore the warning signs that don't come with red flags. To them, danger has a frequency, and once it hits, they trust it, every time. Number 9. They don't empathize with victims who refuse to evolve. Sigma. Empaths have no interest in emotional theatrics. They're not the type to sit around endlessly comforting people who don't actually want to heal. Their empathy is real, but it has boundaries. And the moment they sense that someone is using their pain as a prop, for attention, sympathy, or emotional manipulation, they step back without a word. Not out of cruelty, but because they've learned the hard way. Some people don't want solutions. They want an audience. They don't judge people for struggling. They know pain. They've carried deep emotional wounds themselves, but they also know the difference between someone in pain and someone addicted to it. When suffering becomes part of someone's identity, when it's repeated like a script, used as a shield to avoid growth, or weaponized to guilt-trip others, Sigma empaths go silent. They recognize that empathy, when given to the wrong person, becomes a tool for self-sabotage and manipulation. They're not fooled by tears without accountability. They don't fall for victim stories that never change. They can feel when someone is stuck and sincerely trying versus when someone is comfortable being stuck, because it gets them attention, excuses, or control. And when they realize that someone isn't interested in evolving, they pull the plug, quietly, cleanly, without drama. To many, this can seem heartless. But to the Sigma empath, it's self-respect. They're not here to be emotional crutches for people who refuse to walk. They don't play the savior. They don't enable cycles, because they know that sometimes offering endless empathy isn't healing. It's feeding the lie that you're powerless. And Sigma empaths don't feed lies, even if it looks kind on the surface. They believe in growth, in emotional accountability, in people doing the work. If someone's pain is real but they're willing to confront it and rise, Sigma empaths will stand beside them with unwavering support. But if someone's just rehearsing the same story to stay small and keep others orbiting their wounds, they're on their own. Sigma empaths aren't cruel. They're just done wasting healing energy on people who have no intention of using it. Number 10. They can sense the exact moment you stop being genuine. There's no faking it around a Sigma empath. You could have the most charming smile, the smoothest words, the perfect delivery. But the moment your energy shifts, they feel it. You don't have to say anything wrong. You don't have to make a big mistake. All it takes is one flicker of inauthenticity, a forced laugh, a half-second hesitation, a change in tone, and it hits them like a static charge. They don't need evidence. They don't need to figure you out. Their entire body reacts before their mind even forms a thought. The vibe just breaks, and that's all they need to know. It's not drama. It's not suspicion. It's energetic intel, and they take note like it's data. But here's what really separates them. They won't call you out. They won't accuse you or embarrass you. They won't ask, "What's wrong?" like everyone else does. Instead, they go quiet. They mark it, mentally, like a sniper marking a target. Precision, distance, patience. From that point on, they begin watching you from a different angle, not with suspicion, but with awareness. You've shifted, and they're not going to pretend you haven't. This is why people often feel subtly unnerved around Sigma empaths. You won't always know what they've picked up on, but you'll feel the difference in how they look at you, how they respond, how their energy suddenly pulls back. And that change? That's the moment they no longer trust the version of you you're performing. They don't need to prove you're being fake. They don't need to catch you in a lie. They already clocked the exact second you stop being real. And from that point forward, everything you say is filtered through that fracture. It doesn't mean they hate you. It just means they've seen behind the mask, and they never unsee it. Number 11. They speak in a way that makes people cry, not because they're sweet, but because they're accurate. When a Sigma empath speaks, it doesn't feel like you're being comforted. It feels like you're being exposed. Not in a cruel way, but in a way that bypasses every defense mechanism you've built. They don't lace their words with fluff or sympathy. They just say it, clean, direct, unapologetically true. And it's that exact clarity that cuts people wide open. They don't talk to impress. They're not interested in sounding wise or gentle. Their words carry weight because they're filtered through raw perception. They say what they see, and what they see is usually the truth you've been too scared to face. That thing you've been dancing around for years, that toxic relationship, that unresolved wound, that self-sabotaging habit, they name it without hesitation. And they say it in a way that lands, not to destroy you, but to finally free you from your own illusions. People don't cry because the Sigma empath is deep or poetic. They cry because, for the first time, someone spoke to the part of them that's been silenced for too long. The words hit hard because they bypass the ego and go straight to the soul. It's not performance, it's precision, like emotional surgery with no anesthesia, and somehow it feels right, necessary, cleansing. What makes it even more powerful is that they don't chase an emotional reaction. They don't try to comfort you afterward. They don't follow up with, "Was that too harsh?" or "Are you okay?" They know the truth stings, but they also know it liberates. And they're not here to coddle you. They're here to reflect what your inner voice has been whispering all along, but you kept pushing away. There's no ego in their delivery, no moral superiority, just presence, just truth. And in a world full of people too scared to be honest, that kind of raw accuracy shakes people to their core. Not because it wounds them, but because it wakes them up. While others get caught up in your words, Sigma Empaths are tuned into your shifts. The smile that didn't reach your eyes, the compliment that felt transactional, the way you suddenly looked away when asked a real question. These aren't random to them, they're signals. And once they catch it, you're no longer dealing with someone who's emotionally available. You're dealing with someone who's already moved back and is now watching in silence. Number 12. They can love you without letting you in. Sigma Empaths have an extraordinary ability to make people feel deeply cared for without ever opening their own emotional doors. They'll sit with you through your darkest nights, help you unravel your deepest fears, and stand beside you while you confront parts of yourself that scare everyone else away. You'll feel safe, understood, maybe even loved in a way that feels rare. And you'd be right. It is rare. But it doesn't mean you've been let in. See, Sigma Empaths know how to give love without handing over their vulnerability. They don't see compassion as a transaction. Just because they're there for you doesn't mean they're inviting you into their inner world. They can be emotionally present, profoundly empathetic, and still completely private. And that's what confuses most people, because we're used to emotional closeness coming with full access. With them, it doesn't. You might think you're building something intimate with them, but at some point you realize you know very little about what they feel, what they fear, or what they need. And that realization hits harder when you look back and realize how much of yourself you've already shared. It's not that they're playing games. They're just selective, radically selective, because they've learned that not everyone who needs love deserves entry. Some people want access just to feed their own emptiness, not to build something real. Their boundary is quiet but unbreakable. They'll pour into you, guide you, even love you from a place of deep spiritual awareness, but they won't unlock themselves unless they know your soul is safe, unless they trust that you won't use their openness as leverage. Most people never get that key. And here's the twist. They're not doing this to protect themselves from pain. They've already been through pain. They're doing it because they refuse to bleed for people who don't know how to carry what's sacred. So yes, they can love you with presence, with power, with depth, but that doesn't mean you'll ever get behind the walls, because for them, love doesn't mean access. It means integrity, and they'll keep theirs, even if it means keeping you outside the gate. Sigma Empaths aren't just emotionally intelligent, they're emotionally dangerous in the best possible way. They walk through this world with a kind of silent authority that doesn't beg for attention but effortlessly commands it. They don't scream truth. They deliver it in whispers that echo for years. And they don't throw their empathy around like confetti. They wield it like a scalpel, cutting through illusions, lies, and emotional deadweight without hesitation. What makes them awe-inspiring isn't their softness. It's their clarity, their stillness, their refusal to be manipulated by chaos or swayed by performances. They can feel everything, yet remain detached. They can hold space for your deepest wounds, yet still protect their peace. They reflect your truth back to you, not to hurt you, but to wake you up. And when they disappear, it's not to punish you. It's to preserve something sacred, their integrity. They're not here to fix you. They're not here to feed your narrative. They're here to mirror, to reveal, and to quietly shift the energy in any space they enter. And the truth is, most people don't realize how powerful their presence was until it's gone. That absence doesn't just leave silence, it leaves clarity. And that's when you understand. They were never just empathic, they were surgical, and they changed something in you without ever raising their voice. So if you've ever crossed paths with a Sigma empath, consider yourself lucky and challenged. Because once you've been seen by one, the mask doesn't fit the same. The lies don't feel as convincing, and your soul starts craving the version of you they saw, the one you've been too afraid to become. That's the power of a Sigma empath. Not loud, not flashy, but unforgettable. And once you've felt that level of truth, everything else feels shallow. This message hit differently. If something in you felt exposed, awakened, or finally understood, then this channel is where you belong. We don't do surface-level content here. We go deep, we stay real, and we say the things no one else is brave enough to say out loud. So if you're ready for more truth, more power, and more clarity that actually makes you grow, subscribe to the channel so you never miss the raw, the rare, and the real. Like this video if it called something out in you. Drop a comment and tell us which point hit you the hardest. We read every word. Share this with someone who thinks they understand Sigma empaths, but needs a serious wake-up call. This isn't just a channel. It's a movement for those who feel too deeply, see too clearly, and refuse to fake it for the world. Welcome to the tribe. Let's keep shaking the surface.